India Global.
India Global.
Hello and welcome. Join us as we travel to an island,
Which is a country?
which is a continent.
Yes, to Australia.
That was a clip of Aboriginal music.
The island nation of Australia, officially called the Commonwealth of Australia, is surrounded by the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Because of its vastness, Australia has a variety of landscapes. Tropical rainforests, mountain ranges and dry desert, commonly called the outback, in the centre, making up most of the land. Fertile plains are found in the southeast and the majority of its population lives near the coast here.
Canberra is the capital city. The world's largest coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef, is located in the northeast side of the country. Australia's unique flora and fauna include the kangaroo, the koala, the kookaburra, the eucalyptus and the emu, to name a few.
I stood upon the rocky shore, I watched the tall ships come. For 40,000 years I've been the first Australian.
The Seekers, internationally famous Australian band performing the iconic I Am Australian.
Australia is a federal parliamentary democracy. Queen Elizabeth II is the Queen of Australia and head of state. She is represented by the Governor-General. The Prime Minister is the head of government.
Nearly 45% of the population of Australia comprises migrants from over 200 nationalities, also from India, but predominantly English and Irish, besides the Aboriginal population.
I'm a bushy, I'm a battler, I am Australian.
Ties between India and Australia date back to the 18th century. India was an important source of food and provisions for Australia and played a central role in nourishing the young colony. Trade with Australia came to be an important element in the operations of the East India Company in Bengal. And today, complementarities shared by the two countries have strengthened bilateral ties, says India's ambassador to Australia, Biren Nanda.
India and Australia have many things in common, including ties of Commonwealth and cricket. Both countries are vibrant democracy. They are presently witnessing a rapid growth in their ties since the establishment of the strategic partnership in 2009. There has been rapid increase in bilateral trade and investment as well as growing ties in education, skills, science and technology.
A large number of ministerial visits have taken place between the two countries, and this year marks a milestone in these high-level exchanges, says Ambassador Nanda.
2014 has been a very important year for our bilateral relationship. In September this year, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott paid a very successful state visit to India. Our Prime Minister is visiting Australia for the G20 summit and a bilateral visit. These visits will give renewed vigor and momentum to our bilateral ties.
Chart topper Australian singer Kylie Minogue. India ranks among Australia's principal trading partners. On bilateral trade, India's ambassador to Australia, Biren Nanda, says
Australia's trade in goods with India in 2012-13 was Australian dollar 11.91 billion. Australia's exports of goods to India were Australian dollars 9.51 billion. India's main exports to Australia are gems, jewellery, machinery and textiles, while our major imports are non-monetary gold, coal, copper, crude and fertilizers.
Indian investment in Australia is growing, says envoy Biren Nanda, and notes the presence of Australian companies in India.
Australia is a major source of energy, resources and minerals for India. Coal, coking coal, copper, diamonds and gold. Indian companies have made significant investments in the resources and manufacturing sector in Australia. Two very large investments of $10 billion each in coal mines in the Galilee Basin in Queensland are being processed for approval by the Australian government. All major Indian IT companies are established in Australia. Australian companies present in India include Telstra, BHP Billiton, Rio Tinto, MIM Holdings, Lucent Technologies, Insurance Australia Group, ANZ Bank.
Ambassador Nanda outlines new areas of potential cooperation.
New areas of cooperation include water resources and space sciences. The two countries have growing cooperation in defense and security.
On current discussions on the Mutually Beneficial Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement or CECA, Ambassador Nanda says,
India and Australia are currently discussing a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement with a view to diversifying the trade basket, lowering tariffs, addressing non-tariff barriers, increasing market access access and facilitating the movement of professionals for the performance of services. The agreement will also facilitate mutual recognition agreements for the qualifications of professionals.
Science and technology collaboration is another area that sees a robust partnership between the two countries, says India's ambassador to Australia, Biren Nanda.
India and Australia have successfully collaborated in the areas of science and technology under the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund, established in 2006. The fund supports science and technology collaboration in the areas of agricultural research, astronomy, astrophysics, environmental sciences, microelectronics, nanotechnology, renewable energy, marine sciences and earth system sciences, amongst other areas.
There is collaboration in the academic field too, says Ambassador Nanda.
The Australian government and Australian companies are deeply involved in India's skilling effort. Australia helps set standards for a number of industry skill councils in India, and Australian companies are providing training to trainers for a number of Indian companies in the skills area. Australian universities are also partnering Indian universities in joint PhD programs. The Australia-India Institute in Melbourne has also invited a large number of prominent Indians from all walks of life to promote a better understanding of India.
But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia.
The iconic song I Call Australia Home.
The large Indian diaspora in Australia and the growing number of Indian students reaching Australian shores for higher education both enhance people-to-people contact, says India's ambassador to Australia, Biren Nanda.
There are 36,000 Indian students and 450,000 members of the Indian community in Australia. The Indian community has contributed to bringing the best in Indian classical and contemporary arts to Australia. There are many performing Indian artists amongst the Indian community in Australia. The Indian community cultural organizations also invite prominent Indian artists to perform in Australia.
Sport is an integral part of Australian culture, and India and Australia share a passion for cricket, the other popular sports being football, rugby, horse racing, swimming and tennis.
Salam namaste, salam namaste, salam namaste.
Several Indian movies have been shot on locations in Australia. Bollywood has made its presence felt in Australia, says Ambassador Nanda.
Some Bollywood movies have been shot in Australia, and one movie, Besharam, featured an Indian-Australian artist in a leading role.
And tourism is thriving, says India's ambassador to Australia, Biren Nanda.
Approximately 200,000 Australian tourists visited India last year, and 170,000 Indian tourists visited Australia during the same period. Air India has started direct flights between the two countries last year.
From all the lands on earth we come.
And that wraps up our visit to Down Under. But before we go, here's a question for you. No, it's not who's your favourite Aussie.
Steve Irwin,
Nicole Kidman,
Jim Carrey,
Peter Beer,
Steve Waugh.
Kathy Freeman, Pat Cash.
That list is long.
No harm trying though, but here's our question.
What is Australia's contribution to the setting up of Nalanda University in Bihar?
Send in your answers to indiajourneys360@gmail.com. The first 3 listeners sending in the right answers will get a music CD from AIR's archives and a DVD from the Ministry of External Affairs.
Congratulations Geeta Sen and Manish Sharma from Delhi and Ramya from Bangalore for the right answer to the question on Ireland. Leo Varadkar, MP of Indian origin, is currently Health Minister in the Irish government.
Until next time then, goodbye.
And travel safe.